Good morning, welcome to CATEX-TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. This is a live broadcast from Princeton, New Jersey. Today is Monday, March 21st, 2011. It's 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time in the U.S., 3:30 p.m. in London, 12:30 in Hamilton, and in Mexico City, 9:30 a.m. If you need to reach us during the broadcast, you can phone in toll-free at 1-866-67-CATEX. Overseas, our AOL instant mail address is CATEX-TV. This is the first full day of spring, though in the United States and the Northeast it's gloomy, overcast, drizzly, and chilly. Big news that occurred last night, AT&T purchased T-Mobile Wireless. The price was something like $20 billion. The big news, though, was that J.P. Morgan actually loaned AT&T $20 billion to effect the purchase. That's a sign that there might be some loosening up going on. Now to our main news. $35 billion, I'm told by Frank Mazzio, our producer, but J.P. Morgan loaned AT&T $20 billion. Now to our main news. Swiss Re is coming out with some estimates. Munich Re will come out with theirs tomorrow. Swiss Re is estimating that they're going to face about $1.2 billion worth of claims as a result of the March 11th Japanese earthquake. Swiss Re warned that its estimate was, quote, subject to a high degree of uncertainty. Due to the complexity of the loss assessment, the claims estimate is driven mainly by modeled estimates of the reinsurer's portfolio. The next stage of refinement will be actually when the ceding company's estimates arrive, and after that, the details of the original policyholder losses will become available. Swiss Re said that the high proportion of commercial and industrial claims would extend the evaluation process. They're also specifically terming the earthquake and tsunami as a single event. With reference to the Fukushima nuclear crisis, Swiss Re said that, quote, coverage for nuclear facilities in Japan excludes earthquake shock, fire following, for both physical damage and liability, and tsunami. Swiss Re believes that the incident at the Fukushima plant is unlikely to result in a significant direct loss to the P&C insurance industry. Meanwhile, at Fukushima, some good news. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission in the United States is saying that the situation actually might have finally stabilized. The reactors are fairly quiescent now, and they're in the process of hooking up the electrical lines, which have been hooked up, I should say, and they're now beginning to test them. Police officials are saying now that the death toll for the whole earthquake and tsunami is likely to exceed 18,000. The police agency in Japan said that they've collected about 8,700 bodies and another 13,500 people remain missing. The financial cost of the entire disaster has been estimated today by the World Bank to be $235 billion. That bank says that Japan might need 5 years to rebuild. The plant at Fukushima right now is relatively under control. The Japanese Deputy Cabinet Secretary Tetsuro Fukuyama said, we consider that now we have come to a situation where we are very close to getting the situation under control. The government is still facing some difficulties regarding agricultural produce, which has been grown in the area. Raw milk, spinach, and some other things have had iodine and radiation that exceeded normal limits. The tap water in Tokyo, where iodine turned up on Friday, now has cesium in it. The rain and the dust in Tokyo are also slightly tainted. The stock market in the United States craves nothing but stability and is up about 193 points right now. AIG said over the weekend that its Chartis Property and Casualty Division would post about $1 billion in pre-tax losses from the Japanese earthquake. The New York-based group said that $700 million of that $1 billion is specifically tied to the Japan disaster. The rest is tied to February earthquake losses in New Zealand and the northeastern Australian floods. The preliminary loss estimates exclude AIG's property and casualty operations that participate in the Japan Earthquake Reinsurance Fund. AIG has already established about $500 million in reserves for any liabilities that could be coming from that. The AIG CEO, Robert Benmarsh, said that the loss estimates will change as industry losses from the Japan Earthquake Reinsurance Fund become more clear. Well, Flagstone and Moody's are in a little bit of a tiff. Moody's placed Flagstone Re's A3 financial strength rating under review for a possible downgrade this morning. That decision follows a series of natural disasters in Q1, which Moody's says is likely to result in a material loss for Flagstone. In its ratings review, Moody's will seek to obtain more clarity on the reinsurer's losses from these disasters, as well as assess the compatibility of its strategy and risk appetite with its current ratings. Here's what has Moody's concerned. Flagstone has estimated its losses net of reinsurance for January's Australian floods to be about $60 to $80 million, which is as much as 7% of Flagstone equity. They estimate up to $90 million for the New Zealand earthquake, which is a shade under 8% of Flagstone's equity, but Flagstone has yet to disclose its loss estimates for the Japanese quake. But Moody's expects that they will incur losses from this event given its geographic risk profile. So Kevin Lee, a senior credit officer at Moody's, said, Moody's considers the size of the losses from the Australian floods and New Zealand quake to be out of step in relation to the limited size of Flagstone. In the coming months, we'll review Flagstone's strategy, including its approach to allocating notional limits by geographic zones. Flagstone immediately responded, saying they strongly disagree with Moody's actions, and a further statement will be forthcoming later today. We'll have that for you tomorrow. Bermuda-based Omega, which is listed on the London Stock Exchange, has confirmed that it's considering approaches from interested parties to buy the company, but noted that talks were, quote, at an early stage. The news sent Omega shares up 18% on Friday, although this follows a 36% decline from its peak earlier this year. Earlier this month, Omega shares slumped following its revelation of a loss of about $43 million for 2010 and their abandonment of a final dividend. Just 2 months ago, Omega confirmed that it had received an approach from Lloyd's underwriter, actually based in Bermuda, underwriter Canopius. And back to Lloyd's, Whittington Group's London operations, including its Lloyd's managing agency, are up for sale. This is as the Singapore case business looks to free up cash to boost its presence in Asia. The Lloyd's business, Whittington Capital Management, has been a leader in the management of turnkey syndicates at Lloyd's. Whittington hopes that the sale of its London business will produce proceeds of about $630 million US. Toward the end of last year, Whittington was unveiled as the managing agent for the new SCORE syndicate. It also took over management of 2 former Altera syndicates beginning on 1/1/11, and it also currently acts as the manager for W.R. Berkley Syndicate 1967. We'll go to a word from our sponsors and come back with the rest of the news. Well, in the United States at around 11 a.m. Saturday morning, military action in Libya commenced. That would be Eastern time. There's nothing like military action when the U.S. Military's in action. The cable TV channels just immediately go to it 24/7. Initially, the first activity were 20 French jets, which began to take out Libyan radar installations. That was soon followed by a barrage of about 125 Tomahawk missiles fired from sea-based assets by the Americans and by the UK. Just about 5 hours ago, a 3-story building and a military command center used by Muammar Gaddafi was destroyed in an airstrike. That strike was the first reported attack on the sprawling Gaddafi compound in downtown Tripoli. Gaddafi has used that backdrop recently for a televised address. The address is actually pretty familiar to the U.S. We bombed it in 1986. The Gaddafi regime has invited journalists to visit the site of the attack earlier today. Some journalists refused to go, saying that in fact they were being put into a position where they were being used as human shields. Meanwhile, coalition forces have struck at targets northern and northeastern Libya near Benghazi, and the rebels apparently are beginning to take more control over that city, and also the city just to the west, where Gaddafi supposedly had overtaken that on Friday before the no-fly zone began. There's still a little bit of uncertainty as to what's going to happen next. Gaddafi is claiming that massive civilian casualties have occurred. The Arab League is getting a little bit of cold feet, saying they still want the no-fly zone to be in effect, but they don't want any civilian losses. Neither the UK, France, or the United States can confirm that any civilians have in fact been harmed. It's all a pipe dream of Libyan TV, they're saying. Here's something that's not a pipe dream. Insurers operating in Russia are now facing a period of regulatory uncertainty. Earlier today, the Russian President Dmitry Medvedev abolished the country's insurance supervisory body. He transferred its functions elsewhere. Following Medvedev's decree, the responsibilities of the Federal Service for Insurance Supervision have been passed to the Federal Financial Market Service. The majority of the Federal Service of Insurance Supervision are now going to be carried out by the Market Services Group in the future, according to Elena Popova of the Russian law firm Sokolov, Maslov and Partners. Normal FSIS activities such as licensing will be maintained within the new organizational structure. She said, quote, "The procedures haven't changed, at least so far, and the time frames also remain the same." She said this in an interview with Insurance Day. She did say that Medvedev's decree had been rather unexpected by the country's insurance community, with the possibility of it happening previously. It had been discussed, but it was then termed remote and highly unlikely. The law firm went on to say that the exact distribution of functions is still unclear and should be determined by the government. In the Balochistan province of Pakistan, at least 6 miners have been killed and 45 remain trapped deep underground. This is in a coal mine. The explosions that caused the mine to collapse are probably due to methane gas, at least according to local authorities. The miners are working about 3,700 feet underground. The blast occurred yesterday. The mine was in the Saranj district of the war-torn province of Balochistan. It's run by the Pakistan Mineral Development Corporation. And you have to give credit where it's due. We oftentimes in the United States wonder about what the relevancy of a royal family is. Well, Prince William is in the air right now. He's returning to England after an emotionally raw tour of meeting those affected by the disasters in New Zealand and Australia. New Zealand, of course, rocked by the 2 earthquakes, and Australia with the massive floods. Prince William has come to the end of a 5-day trip. He was in Christchurch and he was in northern Queensland. He was said to have been, quote, incredibly moved by what he saw and the stories he heard. An aide said William had enjoyed the tour, but, quote, he hasn't come here to enjoy himself, he's come here to do a job. This aide, very loquacious is he, quote, he's been very touched and humbled by what he's seen because these communities have lost everything, and the way they've come together and looked after one another is genuinely a lesson for all of us. The tour has been filled with emotional moments, such as the prince meeting with the family of 13-year-old Jordan Rice, who died along with his mother in Toowoomba, Queensland, after telling rescuers to save his brother. But as the prince prepared to travel back to England, there were moments of light relief. On the last day of his visit in Victoria, the 28-year-old prince turned down an admirer who proposed to him. Tiana O'Brien and her school friend Isla Fenton, both 17, greeted William during a visit to Kerrang, Victoria, with the sign, "I'll be your princess." As the prince walked along the crowds, Tiana cried out to him, "Marry me," but the prince, who will marry Kate Middleton on April 29th, replied, Sorry, you're too late. Well, that's all the news for today. If we have any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. Tom Bailey will be doing the news tomorrow from London. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on Wednesday. Later today, we will be interviewing Peter Montanaro, the head of the Delegated Authorities Unit at Lloyd's, and we'll be running that tomorrow during Tom Bailey's show. Thank you for watching.